Hey, in this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be sitting down and talking with Vin from the band The Last Martyr, the drummer, and they're a band from Australia, and we're going to be talking about them opening up for the bands HANABIE and Paledusk during their Australian tour dates. Hope you guys like, subscribe, and share this video, and enjoy the rest of the podcast. Hey, welcome back to another interview. I've got with me The Last Martyr. Hey, what's up, man? Can you introduce yourself and tell me your role in the band and tell me a little bit about the band too?
Yeah, sure, man. Thanks for having me. My name's Vin. I'm from the band The Last Martyr in Australia, Melbourne, and I'm the drummer. So we've been a sort of metalcore band for the last 5 years or so, and we're just kind of constantly pushing stuff and trying to include electronics and stuff. So it's metalcore, but with a little bit of a extra flair, if that makes any sense.
Hell yeah, man! I dig it. Yeah, you popped into one of our live streams and like you put in one of your songs for us to react to, and bro, I really dug it. Like I actually put it in my music library right after.
Yeah, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. I mean, I'm always a bit nervous when I'm giving it in because I know all live streams have their own little communities and people that tune in kind of have their own musical taste and stuff. So I've been watching you guys for a little bit and I was like, oh, I feel like there's a little bit of crossover. Let me see how it goes.
Oh, no worries, man. Like I personally really love that stuff. I love it when bands do that, and like I'm guilty of it myself. I've done it a couple times with my other project, but totally cool. Yeah, tell me a little bit about the band. When did you guys start? How many members?
Yeah, so we started in about 20, kind of started 2017, writing everything and sort of getting everything together. We were a five piece at the time, so two guitarists, one vocalist, myself on drums, and one bassist. And that was the first iteration of the band. We got together, wrote material, and then started putting out stuff in 2018. So we were pretty much just an online band at the time. Like all of us had been in previous bands before that, and some of us even in same bands before. Nothing that was huge, mainstream, notable and stuff. So we kind of got together and we're sick of all waiting on people and this and that and things holding us back. And we thought, let's just do it ourselves. So yeah, we started off and our strategy was kind of put out video clips online, just be an online band for a little bit. And then it was only after a year of putting out three singles that we played our first live gig in 2019 and released an EP. So that was the first beginnings of the band. And then we had a bit of a lineup change since then. And then we just kept working through the pandemic and dropped another EP in 2021. Started doing a bit more stuff with electronic experimentation on chords and backgrounds of guitar patches and how we could integrate them. And we found that it was here in Australia, it was a little bit of a cheat code to be an independent band during the pandemic, just because the industry had pretty much all shut down and all the guys who didn't have a label or management to go through were just carrying on as per normal. And because there was no noise from the bigger outlets, anyone who was still working as a band was just yeah, we got the little mushroom in Mario Kart. We're just on a little bit of a extended speed boost. So we just kept working all through the pandemic, got heaps of gigs and took all the opportunities we could get. And now that that's all sort of subsiding, we're still just grinding and about to release our third EP.
Dude, that's awesome. Like that's really cool that you guys were hustling during the pandemic and like really took advantage of, the fact that everybody was home and stuff, and um
Yeah, we found that a lot of the traditional outlets that would cover bigger bands and stuff, all that was just hungry for more content because those guys weren't putting anything out. There were no shows. And we thought, well, the most productive thing we could have done was to just keep putting out music. So kept at it.
so does that mean you guys produced it all yourself, or was there a studio that you guys went to?
So basically, I don't know if you've heard of the band Wind Waker.
No, I've never heard of them.
So they're signed to Fearless. They're an Australian band, but they're signed to Fearless Records.
Yeah.
And I actually think there's one of the songs you might like. Their album, there's a song called Beautiful. Worth looking up after. But yeah, that's got a bit of J-pop influence on it.
Okay, I'll check it out.
But they're a metalcore band as well. But yeah, so their drummer Chris, he's a producer. So we worked with him on our second EP, and we had this really good working relationship of he really got the sound that we were trying to go for, and was really instrumental in trying to add a couple of other electronic layers because he's got a bit of experience with that in Wind Waker. So yeah, we've been working with him pretty much. It's just yeah, the band and him. So we'll just spitball demos between ourselves and then bring a whole bunch of them into him. And he'll just be like, I see potential in XYZ. And then we start cracking on with those ones. And that's kind of the process we work with.
Nice, very cool, dude. And so you guys are unsigned as well, you know. And I saw that you released your music video through DreamBound. Can you
Yeah,
explain
yeah.
a little bit about that? Because like I know what DreamBound is, but like I haven't been able to like I don't know the ins and outs of it. Like, you go ahead and explain a little bit about it.
Yeah, definitely, man. So DreamBound, I mean, okay, well, we'll take it back a step. So basically, I personally, I think the best model for a musician in 2023 is have your own YouTube channel, have your own like socials, constantly produce like content for that and build a fan base that way, and then slowly feed your music out. Very similar to what you guys are doing, which I wish I could. But unfortunately, like all of us have full-time jobs and we're like come home from work and we're pretty much self-managed as well. So finances and marketing and all that sort of stuff we're taking care of. So DreamBound is like a hosting YouTube channel. And yeah, that since they were one of the originals, actually, there was DreamBound and I think oh no, not Nightcore. There's another one. Oh, Space Untravel, I think. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Yes, that one I like looking up unsigned bands there too.
Yeah, so pretty much they were these bigger sort of like compilation YouTube channels, if you would, back in the 2010s, right? And they would put on bands just as like it was like MTV, but for unsigned bands, pretty much. And so you'd subscribe. I remember subscribing to it, and I'd see all these new bands that I never heard of. And basically, for people who didn't have a YouTube channel, they had an audience who would then kind of like hack the algorithm for you if you put your song out through them. So in the beginnings, they were just posting videos, and then eventually it came to like a people would approach them and say, "Hey, could you host my video?" And then now it's gone to the point where they get a little bit picky because now they know that they have an audience, and they're like, "Well, if we don't think this is going to go well with our audience, then we're probably not going to like take you on." So you do pay them a little bit, but I think for people that don't have that YouTube channel that's standing in the algorithm, and people who aren't constantly putting out content and sort of building the channel, and yeah, you could do Google ads on your video, but it's almost not as effective as an organic channel pushing out the video. So yeah, that's what we decided to go through with this video. The last video we put out, we did it on our channel with just some ads to push it. And it didn't go as well as this one did. So we're pretty happy with how it went. And in terms of the legitimacy of it, so I don't know if you've heard of bands like Yours Truly, Caskets.
Oh yeah, I love those bands. I didn't know
Yeah, like
Caskets was Australian. That's crazy.
no, they're from the UK. They're from the
Oh, okay.
UK.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, Hollow Front, like all those guys have hosted videos on DreamBound. So if you go back, there's some of these unsigned bands that are now much bigger who have videos up on DreamBound. It's the same sort of arrangement. Your video stays on there. You can't upload it on your own channel. But I mean, that's the price you pay, right? I mean, like we got about just under well 9K and a bit views for this music video, which is more than what we would have gotten if we just put it up on our channel. So yeah, it's a bit of a trade-off, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worth it in my opinion. My partner doesn't
Yeah.
seem to think so, but I think it is, to be honest.
No, I totally get where he's coming from though, because you want to build it on your own. You want to like own everything that you do because you do spend a lot of money in it. But the trade-off for bands on our level, especially, I feel like is just getting it out there and making sure like it gets the most amount of eyes on it.
Yep.
So whatever you're spending in the production of the video, it's good, but it goes to waste if not enough people see it. So I feel like yeah, that's the trade-off that you do.
Exactly. Like I think something like that too is totally necessary, you know, like that I found many a band through there. Like
Yeah, yeah.
those
And
exact bands you mentioned, you know, Yours Truly, Caskets, like that's where I found them. So
yeah, like Hollow Front was a big one for me. Like they popped off during the pandemic as well. And I first saw them on DreamBound. So it's pretty cool.
and now like coming back from the pandemic too, like do you think like how do you think it's impacted the or how do you think the music scene is now, like post COVID and all that stuff? Like how do you think it's going? I've heard
Yeah, it's
different things. I've heard some people say it's worse, some people say it's the best it's ever been. Like I'm talking all fronts, so like touring, music quality, all that kind of stuff.
yeah, I mean, personally, from my experience, I can speak to Australia, but I was also lurking a lot on what was going on in the US market and the UK market, just because I mean, like, yeah, we need to keep track of these things if we want to try and push out there, right? So, um, before the pandemic, it was very sort of I don't want to say the word gatekeepery, but it was very like international band comes down to Australia. The first pick would be like another bigger Australian support. And then for an opener, you'd usually get whoever the label signed recently, like a smaller band, and they would automatically get the support. During the pandemic, I mean, we got a pretty big opportunity during the pandemic where to support. We opened for Black Veil Brides when they came down,
Oh, that's dope. I
and
love Black Veil
yeah,
Brides.
they're sick, man. They're super nice people and everything as well. And they were nice enough to take us on like the Melbourne and Sydney shows. And I feel like we probably wouldn't have gotten that opportunity if it wasn't for the pandemic, if I'm being honest, because you'd go through all the typical stuff of, okay, they're coming down. What's their partner label in Australia? What have they got going? What bands do they have? And then they'd get on. But because we were still hustling and putting out music and getting arguably a bit more traction and spotlighting than these other label bands that were smaller, we managed to approach their management through other channels and just be like, hey, we know they're coming down. We're doing this. Here's our APK. Yeah, it was a bit of a disruptor to the music scene, if I'm being honest. There was a good opportunity for more local bands. Like we have Australian rules football on TV. It's similar to the NFL, but just Australian, and they don't wear as many. They don't wear a helmet and stuff. They just beat each other pretty much. But we got like a couple of small bands on our level got our songs aired on like the little player stat screens that they would have when they're talking about players and stuff. It's like
okay, cool.
yeah, so like our music got featured there, and we got the little pop-up head. It was like a proud moment when my dad was watching it. He was like, oh, whoa, you're on there.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and I feel like we wouldn't have gotten those opportunities if it wasn't for like that massive disruption moment, right? So during that 2 years, we all these local bands who were just still hustling managed to get a bit more of a spotlight. We got more radio play because we were just consistently putting out music. Between like, because we had some crazy lockdowns here in Australia, but between lockdowns, you'd have pop-up shows where it's like, hey, we're having a show this weekend. It might happen, might not. If it does, we'll see you there. And like, they just call us up and be like, hey, you want to play a show tomorrow night? And we're like, sick, rock up. And there's like 300 people there. Yeah, we were all willing to just hustle and do that and just put a bit of goodwill into the scene. So yeah, that helped us out a lot. And now that everything's sort of coming back to pre-COVID days, yeah, there's this whole alliance of sort of independent bands that have built themselves up a little bit and now have a bit more ammunition to sort of pitch themselves to like labels and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was a shitty time. Like, don't get me wrong, not discounting any of the hardships anyone went through. But I mean, yeah, this helps us keep some sanity, you know, and build a little bit of an alliance with the other guys on our level.
That's awesome, dude. And like when you're talking about the sports stuff too, I was just like, what a great way to promote as well, you know? Like
Yeah.
getting your music it's an interesting way to get your music out there, you know? Like an older band of mine, like we try to sell our music to pro wrestlers and have them walk out to our music, you know? But it never really panned out. But like
Yeah, I
it's
don't
cool.
understand why that doesn't happen though. Because like, I mean, on the independent level, like you'd pay us way less, and we're so happy to just like even write a song for you. Like it's almost like a match made in heaven. I don't know why they don't do it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great way. And that's interesting too, that like, you know, this is the first time I'm actually hearing of someone that you know, benefited really well from the pandemic, you know. Usually it's the other way around for other bands, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was just opportunities we saw that we were like, I mean, let's do it. If we really push through it, like, I'm not sure if this sort of like we got stuff where Pale Dusk. Do you know the band Pale Dusk?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we supported them on their show in Melbourne when they came down. I think it was might have been 2022 when things were starting to open back up, but because we were still up and about and doing shows and stuff, we managed to get a support slot with them, which was amazing. Another band, Gloom in the Corner. Can't remember if they're signed to the same label as Pale Dust, but yeah, I mean, they're also a crazy, like, their stuff. If you ever look them up, Gloom in the Corner, their music's so dense that like you'd hear it the third or fourth time through and go like, oh, I didn't realize that vocal melody was there or something like that. So
Another
worth
Japanese
checking
band,
out.
or is it
No, they're
local?
Australian. They're
Oh,
Australian.
okay. I'll check them out. Check them out for sure. And yeah,
Um,
dude, tell me more about the Pale Dust show and then the HANABIE show. That's one thing we didn't mention. You recently got to open for HANABIE.
yeah. So well, the Pale Dust show was sick. It was kind of like in a it was like in a club night. So eve of a public holiday here in Melbourne, there's usually like a emo club that runs. So Paledusk were down for that show. It was absolutely huge. Club nights are always fun because like a whole bunch of people were there for the club night, and then even more people rock up because they're a fan of the band. Um, so those guys came down. They were actually touring with another band named Thornhill in Australia at the time,
Okay.
and they were just doing this one-off club night. And they'd just gotten in from Japan, and their drummer had a visa issue, so he was like coming in 2 days' time or something. So they got one of their friends to jump on, and like how crazy Powder songs are. Guy
Oh
nailed
yes.
like everything. Just got the call up, rocked up to Australia, jet lagged, nailed everything. So
That's dope.
yeah, those guys are super professional, man. They put on a huge show. Like sound wise, you could tell they put a lot of effort into making sure that wherever they play, because we played in like a room that was probably could probably hold about 600-700 people at capacity, but it was like brick walls around and all that sort of stuff. But you could hear them really well, and yeah, they've definitely put a lot of effort into their live show production, which is amazing. And
Hell
also like, yeah, halfway during the set, a girl passed out, and they just like stopped the show, made sure she was safe. They got her outside, got the paramedics involved, and then they were like, let's kick straight back in, and it's like they didn't miss a beat.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. And did they hit you guys up, or was it like the venue or the promoter that hit
So
you
I
guys up
think
to get that one?
Yeah, so we pitched a lot of these things. It's kind of like you got to, as soon as you get wind of who's coming down, you almost just approach promoters or management, anyone who's linked to that show, right? And you kind of pitch yourself and say like, here's a little sample of what we play. Here's why we think we would work well with that band, and all that sort of stuff. And then ultimately, it's the band and the band's management that make the call.
Mm.
So yeah, like recently, Evanescence came down, and dude, they're amazing. They sold out like arenas. Well, I don't. They probably didn't like arenas in Australia are weird because you got like the floor seats, which everyone sells out straight away, and
Uh,
then like because some of them get up pretty high, it's like as long as you sell the first 3-4 rows, I consider that sold out. Like in my book, that's yeah, that's sold out in my book. But yeah, Evanescence came down. We tried to pitch for them because we thought like we'd be a pretty good fit because we got a lot of that sort of new metal influence in our music. But unfortunately, like we missed out, and one of the other our friends, the Beautiful Monument, they got it actually. So really stoked for them because they've been around for a while as well, and they deserve all these huge opportunities that come their way. But yeah, you pretty much just get on the front foot, and like if you have a booking agent, go to the booking agent and be like, hey, we want to push for this, or yeah, if you don't, you just got to be proactive about it. And also, it helps if like you're out there at shows and local shows every week, making connections, getting known, and sort of like yeah, just seeing what's out there and keeping your ear to the ground. So it's a real hustle if you're not signed or if you're independent as a musician. So
yep.
things to keep out for.
Yeah, the networking part is probably the hardest thing I think people would have, with being in a band, because a lot of people are like introverted and stuff. So luckily we have
Yeah.
Alan who's really good at that stuff. So
Yeah. And I mean like the internet in a lot of ways kind of like disrupted all of it because if you're extroverted enough and you're being like a bedroom sort of maniac posting videos every day, people are gonna know you either way if you have the time to. So it's almost easier to like be a TikToker and then be a musician, if you know what I mean.
I mean, but does it translate? Like,
Yeah. It's such an interesting time because like yes, it doesn't translate, you're correct. And there's also like I know guys who have like a bit of a pull on TikTok. However, they didn't go through the same grind that like we would have gone through where you go like I'm playing to no one. I'm playing on a stage to no one. And then the next show I play there's like 15 people and then there's like 20 people and you go through that progression of how you handle yourself in front of a crowd. Whereas someone's big on TikTok, and let's say it does translate. The next day they're playing at a festival, and there's like thousands of people there.
yeah, yeah.
Is that a good first show? Like you haven't really like. Would you know how to handle that sort of crowd? Like would your nerves not get to you?
Yeah, yeah, I feel it. So it's like more of a build up kind of thing, but my mind was just like, okay, I've seen a bunch of YouTubers and TikTokers, try to make music and stuff like that, but it's just like they're not in the mainstream, like Lady Gaga, that kind of mainstream. So I was just like, yeah, they're still
Yeah,
kind of like
true.
they get a lot of people. They get like the 1,000 people plus shows, and but like is it a sold out stadium kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. And then even if it is, like the worst thing would be if you play a sold out stadium and they go, "Oh, he wasn't that great live, but I liked his music." Do you know what I mean? You don't want to have that. You'd rather play to like, I don't know, a much smaller venue where you feel comfortable and everyone's like, "That was a sick show."
Oh yeah, yeah. Those definitely the first couple of shows where there was like nobody in the crowd definitely prepare you for the big ones.
Yeah,
Just getting a
yeah. It's
feel
one of
for
those ones.
playing live in general.
Yeah, because it definitely is a different thing. And like I remember the first few shows I would have played, and even my bandmates, guitarists and stuff, like you just play while you're just standing there and you don't realize like you moving around and acting like a maniac on stage actually engages the audience and like pulls them in a little bit more. And I had like one of our friends who kind of like gives you feedback from a third party point of view, where he's like, I've seen your set, you don't hit your cymbals hard enough. And I was like, why does that matter? I'm broke. Like all my practice cymbals are my broken cymbals and shit's expensive. But he's like, no, you don't get it. If you don't go hard on the drums, the three people in front of you aren't gonna like absorb that energy and then feel like, fuck yeah, I gotta go hard on the drums. And like they gotta go hard on their instruments, sorry. And it's just like a chain effect that then finally leads on to the audience. And I was like, I'll give it a go. Did it. And I was like, it actually makes a difference.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I think uh, definitely it's definitely like a mutual kind of thing with the crowd and us. Like you
Yeah.
definitely feel it when the crowd's into it, you're into it, and then when you're into it, the crowd's into it. It's like a weird cycle.
Yeah. There's nothing better than being on stage and you're playing and you can see the crowd moshing, or you can see like a circle pit just naturally forming. It's one of those like, I'm gonna put on the best show because these guys are having the best time. And it's like it's like a self-sustaining sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you play a cover too, just like a one-off cover, and everybody knows the cover that you're doing, and they all start singing along. Like that's to me is the best fucking feeling there is. Even though
Oh
it's
dude,
not our song.
we did a cover of Freestyler by Bum Funk MCs.
I've never heard of that.
Um it's like I feel like if you pulled up the song, you would know it, like the original, because it was
Uh,
such an iconic song from like the 2000s. And yeah, every time that sample comes in at the start, people just go like, you can see it, you can see it in their faces. You can just go like, oh wait, no, that I know that song, but there's no way they're playing that song. And then like it went so well as like a little live cover, a live version of it that we played, that we like rewrote it as like our version and we released it earlier this year. And yeah, I mean, it goes off great live because it's that extra thing, especially if you're playing like a set with the Hanabi or someone where the crowd doesn't know you, they're there to see them. So you play a couple of your songs and they're like, oh yeah, these guys are all right. And then you play the cover and it's almost like a strategic little nugget you drop in there because they're like, they like this song, I like this song, these guys are all right. And then everyone just keeps going.
Crowd pleasers, man. You can't you can't get away from them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're all there to have a good time at the end of the day, and that's what you want them to do. So give it to them.
Yep, exactly. And so let's get to it. The Hanabie, I think that's the part everybody came here to listen
Yeah.
to. Well, how
Yeah.
did that go? How did that come about? And.
So there's a heavy music festival in Australia. It's on today actually in Melbourne. I just couldn't go because I had work and I'm flying off to Sydney tomorrow to record drums. But there's a heavy music festival called Good Things, happens every year. And this year, Fall Out Boys headlining, Limp Bizkit's right under them. So they're actually down to play at Good Things, the festival. And every time there's a festival in Australia, there's always a little sidewave that happens. So all these bigger bands would do a little sideshow outside of the main festival. So anyone who maybe doesn't want to go to the festival goes to these sideshows just to see that band instead of paying like the $250 or whatever the ticket price is. So they were down and they were doing a Melbourne sideshow and a Brisbane sideshow. And then they're also doing they're actually doing the sideshows with Limp Bizkit. So they're opening for Limp Bizkit on the bigger ones.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, which is great. Like I think if you go on their Instagram and stuff, you got pictures of them with Limp Bizkit in Japan when they came down.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's where
yeah.
they must have met and like built that connection. But yeah, so they were down to do the Limp Bizkit shows and then also their own shows because turns out they have a following here in Melbourne or in Australia. And so we wanted to see how we could get in, and we actually have a contact in America who heard us on one of our friends submitted our track to Tom from Straight from the Path, how he's on Twitch as well.
No, I haven't heard of him.
Was Yeah, so submitted our track to so one of our friends from another band, Silverfang, they submitted our song to Tom's stream, and then someone else heard that song on his stream and contacted us, and I was like, hey, I'm an agent in America, and I heard you guys and thought you were really cool. Would you like to work together and do stuff? And yeah, we kind of like kept talking, and we've been keeping in touch with him. His name's Matt Steele. And he was like, oh yeah, he just happened to say something. We were chatting to him and he said something like, hanging out with Hanabie's management, or something like that. And Ben like pounced and was like, oh, hey, they're coming down to Australia. Could you pitch us? Like, we'll send you a whole bunch of stuff. Could you pitch us to them to do the sideshows? And he was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll get onto that. So he did his thing, and we started talking to him, and yeah, like, well, their management, and then we got the offer, and yeah, it kind of came down that way. So again, it's really, man, like networking and getting yourself out there. That's sort of how you get these shows. And I'm 100% confident because the show's pretty much sold out before we got on board. We even got announced. So that crowd was all there to see them. So when you're the opening like band, your job is to warm up the crowd for them. So you almost have to go as hard as you can just to make sure that you not only make the crowd move, but you make sure that the headliner comes on and they're like, cool, the crowd's awesome now. They're all ready to dance and they're ready to like mosh and do all sorts of stuff. So yeah, we were like, this was a big show for us. And we thought, because they played in a room with like about 450 people. So most of them had already been like, the doors opened and the queue was around the block. So we were like, oh damn, we really got to put on a show today. Yeah. So we were a little bit nervous going on because we're like, we want to make sure this is good. It's an international, similar to when we played for Black Belt Brides. It was one of those like, yeah, we got to make sure that we put on a show. So did that. And what was really cool, we played like with a couple of other bigger bands before, and usually their pre-show rituals are like, and nothing against them. I would do the exact same thing if I was a headliner. Like they would be off doing their own little rituals in the green room, or like warming up and all that sort of stuff, which is fair enough. But the girls from HANABIE were, a couple of them were watching us from side of stage. And like, we only knew this because later on we saw on their stories that they posted a story of us, and we are like, that is amazing.
Good thing you guys didn't know. The pressure would have been immense, dude.
Yeah. I saw their drummer's story, and it was just like side stage filming us. And then I'm like doing this one fill that I've messed up a couple of times when we first wrote that song. She's penned to me, and I'm like, oh damn, lucky I didn't stuff that up. Like,
that's freaking awesome, man.
So, but yeah, their show was sick. There was obviously a little bit of I was wondering how they'd go with it. There was a little bit of a language barrier between them and the crowd, but they pulled it off perfectly. Like, the crowd was understanding enough because, I mean, yeah, as you would be if you're a fan of an international band like that. There was a bit of, they put on a bit of banter. They had a few jokes and stuff, and they really got the crowd like on their side while they were hitting the bigger songs as well. So it was really cool to see that they had cultivated such a supportive crowd in a country that doesn't predominantly speak Japanese. So that was cool.
Yeah, it's crazy how much like Japanese music is known like worldwide, you know. Countries like Brazil and Mexico and stuff know a lot of, you know, where they don't speak Japanese at all. It's just like they like all these bands, and I'm just like, wow, that's wild, you know.
Dude, I blame anime. I mean, I don't blame anime. I love anime, but yeah, I feel like anime is such a awesome medium for like storytelling, and that's like transcended the world, right? And because like when you hear even Japanese metal bands like Paledusk, HANABIE, even Baby Metal, right? These bands, when you hear their music, you get this very emotive sort of drive that almost reminds you of certain anime scenes, and it's like that connection is like bigger than any language barrier can be, you know.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's how I started down my rabbit hole through like the Japanese stuff. It started with anime, like all the anime openings, especially the Death Note ones. Like this channel would not be here if it wasn't for Death Note.
Oh, the Death Note kind of opened the basket. Yeah, those animes open it up for the whole world, really.
Yep. It's trippy how like it's become like this thing, you know. I remember being in middle school and it was like the lamest thing to be into anime.
Yeah,
And then all
back
of a sudden
then.
it's all mainstream now.
Yeah, I wish I was going to school now because I feel like I grew up reading comic books as well, and I feel like if I was the same person that I was in middle school, but in middle school now, I wouldn't be as um I wouldn't be as like shy to admit that I liked these things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, but that's
But
awesome,
yeah,
man. You guys, that's, I mean, good. That's good on you guys to have gotten that opportunity and put on a good show. You know.
yeah, thanks, man. We got one more show left with them, so we got the next one up in Brisbane on Monday. We're flying up for that one,
Yeah.
so it should be fun. Like we've played that venue before. It's a cool venue, so really looking forward to it. And they would have finished their Limp Bizkit shows as well, so might be a little chance to chat with them after the show, so that they're not like they don't have to rush anywhere or stress about anything coming up. So yeah, fingers crossed we get to chat with them, hang out with them a little bit after the show. We'll see how it goes.
Dope. And you also mentioned having a job too. Like, how do you find it hard to balance both the band and your job at the same time, or like how do you make it work? You know?
Yeah, man, it's a struggle. It's a bit of a struggle. So like, I mean, coming from like ethnic background, my parents were very like, it's cool that you play music, but you have to get a job and it's got to be a good one, and that you got to remember that's your main thing. So it was almost like I was kind of like living the two lives, and then like it's like two honest it's like two branches on the skill tree. I'll put it that way. It's like you're developing this and that, and at the start it was definitely a struggle because I kind of work like a semi-corporate job. Like I'm a structural engineer.
Oh, wow.
So I yeah designed like bridges and stuff, and now I'm a bit more on the review and quality control side. But I remember especially when I started straight out of uni, it was like you'd work 50-hour weeks at a minimum, and then you come home from that, and then there's like you practicing, and then you like doing the writing process of songs, and then there's the marketing aspect and all these other things, and it's just like it's really like having two jobs. But it was kind of like two things that I was pushing on at the same time when I got started. And I'm glad I did, because I know that the way the music scene is, you could work your ass off and you get to a point where you do have some notoriety and you do make some money. But then like that can all disappear. Like the reality is, hopefully we all in bands become like Bring Me the Horizon and we can make a living out of it. But I know too many friends who have just pushed too hard and then just burnt out, and then like just didn't have a fallback plan. So it is a bit of a hard one to handle both. Like I struggle outside of these two things. I struggle to do other things in life, like dating, or like going to the gym is another one that keeps disappearing out of my schedule if things get busy.
Dude,
So
same.
yeah, as soon as like shows pick up, you're just like, well, I don't even have time to sleep at this point. So what good is the gym going to do me?
Yeah.
But then yeah, after like a month and a half or 2 months of being on the road, or just back to back weekend shows, like I feel it in my gut. I feel like this isn't right. I need to get this good as soon as this tour finishes. Otherwise it's just going to be a shitty Christmas. But yeah, it is a hard one. But at the same time, I will say that I'm glad I did it, because I don't have to worry as much about like paying my rent when I'm away, and like comfortably affording, oh, I need a new pair of sticks, or this cymbal broke. Like I'm not as backed into a corner as I would have been if I didn't develop that second skill tree of having that career job.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got its benefits and it's a bit of a rough life, but it's also got its downsides in terms of like you just feeling like you don't have time in the day to breathe sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, but it's also kind of rewarding too. Like once you pull off both the work and then all the crazy schedule of shows and all that stuff, by the end of it, you're just like, damn, I actually did that, you know?
Yeah, and I will say I've had very understanding bosses all through my career as well, and I've always been of that mindset where I'm like, even if I take the day off because we're shooting a music video or something, I'm going to be working. I'm taking the day off, so I'm saying to them that, hey, I can't be in the office today, but I'm also going to be working and doing little bits. So don't worry if I'm taking random days and weekends off here and there. I mean, weekends are a given, but like a Friday or a Monday just for travel days. But I've always been of the mindset that if like I take a day off, but it's going to affect their workflow because something's not getting done, I try my best to make sure I get it done and then I take the day off, or I work during the day off, just to make sure I don't hinder anyone. And that way you build a good relationship with your boss. So when the time comes and you do need to take that 1 month off, he's like, he's a good worker. I know he's good for it, sort of thing.
That's cool. That's awesome. Is it the type of job where you have to take your work home with you, or?
I mean, everyone has a laptop these days, right? Work gives you a laptop, so you kind of do take your work home with you a little bit. But my current boss, he's really good in terms of like making sure that you have that separation between work and home. So he strongly advises against doing it. If I do it, he's happy for it, but he makes it known that you don't. We're not expecting you to do that. So yeah, I think in 2023 there's a bit more of a socially aware focus, I'll put it that way, in terms of work-life balance. So yeah, it's not going to be at the most like high level paying jobs that expect the world of you, because they get paid money for a reason. But yeah, you can definitely find a good balance in terms of proving that you're worth that time off that you take to play shows and all that sort of stuff.
Nice, man. And where do you guys see yourselves in like 5 years from now?
Um, yeah, it's a good question. So 5 years from now, I'm thinking hopefully we've definitely put out an album at that point. We've so this EP we've got that we're probably going to push. Well, I mean, we've written a bunch of demos. It will probably be an EP, and that's stuff that we'll start releasing next year. But what we're going to try and do with that is start sort of sending around, shopping around to labels and be like, hey, this is who we are. This is how we run our operation. It's very kind of low risk for you to take us on, sort of thing, where we'll still keep this going and take care of the product. We'll just partner up in other assets and then look at how we can help each other out in a partnership going down the line. But basically, we want to try and gauge some interest in that. So hopefully that would help us then to explore markets like North America and Europe in the future. So that's our two big goals, I think. Put out an album and also get ourselves overseas.
Hell yeah, man. I respect it. Thank you so much for doing the interview, man. Really, really appreciate it. I really gotta get going right now, but thank you so much for coming on. That was a pretty good interview, and I appreciate you telling me all the stuff about HANABIE and Paledusk.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'm still going to be watching a stream, so I'll be lurking in the background for sure.
Yeah, don't forget to check out The Last Martyr. Look up their stuff because I honestly really liked it, and yeah, looking forward to good things from you guys.
Thanks, man.
All right, you have a good one, brother. I'll
Catch
be seeing
up.
you. Thank you so much.
No worries. Bye.